The space around the Veil Nebula had been quiet for decades. Coalition patrol ships moved through their routes with practiced ease, scanning for pirates or smugglers. Nothing exciting ever happened here. The nebula itself glowed with soft purple and blue clouds of gas, beautiful but empty. Commander Lisa Bennett sat in the command chair of the Coalition patrol vessel Mercury. She watched the scanner displays with tired eyes. 15 years in the Coalition fleet had taught her that space patrol was mostly boring. Her crew consisted of 3 different alien species, all working together. That was normal now. Humans, Valorians, Kresh, and dozens of other races served side by side. The war had ended 150 years ago. Lisa had learned about it in history class. The First Contact War, they called it. Humanity had met the galaxy with violence, and the galaxy had responded the same way. Millions died on both sides before peace finally came. Now those old enemies were friends and allies. A sharp beep from the sensor station made Lisa sit up straight. Her Valerian sensor officer, Tex, leaned forward over his console. His blue skin darkened with concern. "Commander, I have a large object emerging from the nebula," Tex said. His voice was steady but confused. "Energy signature is massive. It does not match anything in our database." Lisa stood and walked to the sensor station. On the screen, she saw a massive shape pushing through the glowing clouds. It was huge, easily 3 kilometers long. The ship had a design she recognized from old history files. Human. Very old human design. "That cannot be right," she whispered. "Run the scan again." Tex worked quickly. "Confirmed, Commander. The ship matches First Contact War era design. Human supercarrier class. But that is impossible. All those ships were destroyed or decommissioned." Inside the UHS Valiant, Captain Vincent Drake stood on his bridge and looked at the stars. They were wrong. Everything was wrong. 3 weeks ago, his ship had entered what looked like a spatial tear during a desperate battle. They had been losing. The enemy fleet had surrounded them. Drake had taken the risk and flown his ship into the unknown. Now they were here. Wherever here was. His navigator, Lieutenant Emma Walsh, had been trying to figure out their position for hours. She finally turned to face him, her face pale. "Sir, I have our position," Emma said quietly. "We are near the Veil Nebula. But sir, the star positions are wrong. Very wrong." Drake frowned. "What do you mean, wrong?" "The stars have moved, sir. Based on their positions, I calculate that approximately 150 years have passed." The bridge went silent. Every crew member stopped and stared. Drake felt his stomach turn cold. 150 years. Everyone they knew was dead. Earth had aged without them. The war they had been fighting was ancient history. "That cannot be right," Drake said, but his voice lacked confidence. "Check again." Before Emma could respond, their communications officer spoke up. "Captain, we are receiving a transmission. It is on Coalition frequencies." Drake felt anger rise in his chest. The Coalition. Their enemy. The alliance of alien races that had tried to destroy humanity. "Battle stations," he ordered. "Shields to maximum. Charge all weapons." His crew moved with practiced speed. The Valiant had been Earth's most powerful warship. Its quantum disruption cannons could tear through any shield. Its armor was 5 meters thick in places. If the Coalition wanted a fight, they would get one. "Put them on speaker," Drake commanded. A woman's voice came through, speaking English. "Unknown vessel, this is Commander Lisa Bennett of the Coalition patrol ship Mercury. Please identify yourself. You have entered Coalition space." Drake grabbed the communications controls. "This is Captain Vincent Drake of the United Human Space Forces, commanding the Supercarrier Valiant. We do not recognize Coalition authority. Lower your shields and withdraw, or we will open fire." There was a long pause. When the woman spoke again, her voice was careful. "Captain Drake, I need you to listen to me very carefully. The war is over. It ended 147 years ago. Humanity is part of the Coalition now. We are not your enemy." Drake looked at his crew. They all stared back at him with wide eyes. It had to be a trick. Some kind of psychological warfare. You expect me to believe that? Drake said coldly. That humanity surrendered to you? Not surrendered, Captain. Made peace. I am human, just like you. So are millions of others serving in the Coalition fleet. Please, let us talk. I am sending you data files now. Historical records, news reports, everything you need to see. Drake nodded to his tactical officer. The data came through, and they began reviewing it. Images of human and alien ships flying together. News footage of joint ceremonies. Treaties signed by human leaders and alien representatives. And dates. Dates that proved Emma had been right. 150 years had passed. Drake sank into his command chair. His hands were shaking. This is real, he said quietly. It is all real. Around the bridge, crew members stared at screens or at each other. Some had tears in their eyes. Drake understood. Everything they had fought for was gone. Everyone they loved was long dead. They were ghosts from another time. But they were still soldiers. Drake straightened his shoulders and spoke into the comm. Commander Bennett, this is Captain Drake. We need time to process this information. But we will not fire. We will hold position here. Understood, Captain, Bennett replied with relief in her voice. I am calling for backup and sending word to Coalition Command. Someone much more important than me will want to talk to you. The Valiant was thought to be lost with all hands. Your return is going to shock everyone. Drake closed the channel and looked at his crew. They all looked lost and afraid. He knew he needed to be strong for them, but he felt just as lost. Sir, Emma said softly, what do we do now? Drake took a deep breath. We adapt. We survive. That is what we do. But inside, he wondered if they could really adapt to a universe where everything they knew was gone. 2 days passed in uncomfortable silence. The Valiant held position near the nebula while Coalition ships gathered around it. Drake watched them on his screens. Human ships, alien ships, all flying under the same banner. It felt wrong to him, like seeing the sun rise in the west. Dr. Alan Price moved through the medical bay with heavy steps. He was a thin man with gray hair, though he was only 42 years old. The stress of the war had aged him. Now he learned that his daughter Michelle had grown up without him. She had lived her whole life, had children of her own, and died of old age. All while he experienced 3 weeks. He sat alone in his office and looked at a photo on his desk. Michelle at age 6, smiling with her 2 front teeth missing. She had been waiting for him to come home from this mission. Instead, she had waited her whole life and he never came. The door chimed. Drake entered without waiting for permission. He saw the photo and the tears on Alan's face. The captain sat down across from his old friend. My wife is gone, Drake said quietly. My parents. My brother. Everyone. We are ghosts, Alan whispered. Walking ghosts in a world that moved on without us. They sat together in silence for a long time. There were no words that could make this better. They had sacrificed everything for Earth, and Earth had forgotten them. On the bridge, Emma Walsh reviewed the historical files that Commander Bennett had sent. She read about the peace treaty, signed in 2702. She read about how humanity had helped fight off the Scourge invasion in 2730. She read about joint colonies where humans and aliens lived side by side. It was strange but also wonderful. Humanity had not been destroyed. They had thrived. They had become protectors and leaders in the Coalition. Human soldiers were respected across the galaxy for their courage and determination. The same fighting spirit that made them fierce enemies made them powerful allies. A message came through on priority channels. Emma brought it to Drake immediately. Captain, we have an incoming shuttle. It is carrying Ambassador Helen Carter. She requests permission to come aboard. Drake considered refusing. But he knew they could not hide forever. Grant permission. Have security meet her at the docking bay. Full precautions. An hour later, Ambassador Carter stood in the Valiant's briefing room. She was a tall woman with dark skin and intelligent eyes. She wore Coalition diplomatic robes, but her bearing was military. Drake recognized a soldier when he saw one. With her came two others. A Kresh warrior named Vex, tall and covered in gray scales, and a Valerian science officer named Rena, who kept staring at the Valiant's technology with fascination. "Captain Drake," Kata said, extending her hand. "It is an honor to meet you. I studied the Valiant in Academy. You and your crew are legends." Drake shook her hand carefully. "We do not feel like legends, Ambassador. We feel like people who went to sleep and woke up in the wrong world." Carter's expression softened. "I cannot imagine what you are going through. But I need you to understand something. The galaxy needs you now more than ever." She activated a holographic display. Images appeared showing massive black ships with organic designs. They looked like they had been grown rather than built. "These are the Devourers. They appeared 30 years ago from deep space. They do not negotiate. They do not communicate. They only consume." Drake leaned forward. The tactical officer in him studied the images. "What are their capabilities?" "Extremely powerful," Kata said grimly. "Their weapons are based on dark matter technology. They can tear through our shields like paper. We have held them at the border for years, but they keep coming. Each wave is larger than the last." She changed the display to show technical schematics. "Your ship, the Valiant, was built with experimental quantum disruption technology. That technology was lost when you disappeared. Our scientists spent decades trying to recreate it but failed. Your weapons might be the only thing that can stop them." Drake looked at his officers. Commander Kyle Newman, his engineering chief, was studying the technical data with interest. Lisa Bennett looked thoughtful. Emma Walsh had hope in her eyes. "So you need us to fight your war," Drake said carefully. "The same species we were fighting against 150 years ago." Carter met his eyes steadily. "Not our war, Captain. Everyone's war. Humanity's war too. The Devourers have destroyed 17 colony worlds. 3 of them were human colonies. Millions of your people died screaming as their worlds were consumed." The room went quiet. Drake felt old anger stirring in his chest, but it had nowhere to go. The enemy had changed. The world had changed. Only he and his crew remained the same. "I need time," Drake finally said. "Time to think. Time to talk with my crew." "Of course," Kata said. She handed him a datapad. "This contains everything. All our intelligence on the Devourers. All the history you missed. Letters from your families, stored in Earth's archives. Everything." Drake took the pad with trembling hands. Letters from families. From people who had waited for them and eventually gave up hope. From people who had loved them and mourned them and moved on with their lives. That night, Drake sat alone in his quarters and read every letter. His wife Sarah had written to him for 20 years before she remarried. She never forgot him, she said, but she needed to live. His daughter had written too, angry letters at first, then sad ones, then finally understanding ones. She had named her son Vincent, after the father she never really knew. Dawn came, and Drake had not slept. But he had made his decision. He called his senior officers to the briefing room. "We cannot go home," he said simply. "Home is gone. Everyone we loved is gone. But we are still here. We are still soldiers. And soldiers protect people." He looked at each of them. "I will not order anyone to fight. But I am going to help them. The Coalition, the aliens, all of them. Because that is what we do. We fight monsters so others do not have to." Lisa stood first. Then Kyle. Then Emma. One by one, every officer rose to their feet. They had lost everything, but they still had each other. They still had purpose. They were still the crew of the Valiant. General Frank Holland arrived 3 days later on a massive battlecruiser. He was a legend in the Coalition military. A human who had fought in the border wars and the Scourge conflict. He had gray hair and scars on his face, and when he walked onto the Valiant's bridge, every crew member felt his presence. Drake met him in the observation deck. They stood looking out at the stars through the massive windows. For a long time, neither man spoke. "My grandfather served on the Europa," Holland finally said. She fought alongside the Valiant in the Battle of Proxima. He told me stories about your ship, about how you held the line when everyone else retreated. Drake nodded slowly. The Europa. Captain Martinez. Good man. Good ship. He died 50 years ago, Holland said quietly. But before he died, he made me promise something. If the Valiant ever came back, someone needed to tell her crew the truth. You did not lose the war. You won it. Drake looked at him sharply. Holland continued. The Battle of Proxima was the turning point. When you held that line, you gave the fleet time to evacuate 3 colony worlds. 2 million people, Captain. 2 million people lived because of what you did. The aliens saw that and realized humans would never stop fighting for each other. That is when they started talking about peace. Drake felt something break inside him. All these years, he had thought they failed. They had run from that battle into the anomaly. He thought they had abandoned their duty. We ran, Drake said, his voice rough. We flew into that tear in space because we were losing. You protected the evacuation, Holland corrected firmly. You fought a delaying action that saved millions. Then, when your ship was crippled and you had no other choice, you took a desperate chance. No one called it running, Captain. They called it heroic. Drake turned away and gripped the window frame. His hands were shaking. Holland gave him time to compose himself. I need your help, Captain, Holland said after a while. The Devourers are different from anything we have faced. They do not want territory or resources. They want to consume everything. Every world, every species, everything. He pulled up a holographic display showing a star map. Red markers indicated Devourer attacks. There were dozens of them, spreading slowly toward Coalition space like a disease. We have intelligence that a major attack is coming, Holland said. A fleet larger than any we have seen before. Our analysts think they are going to hit the Crimson Gate station. If that falls, they will have a clear path to the core worlds. Billions will die. Drake studied the tactical display. His old instincts kicked in. What is your defensive plan? Admiral Gregory Stone commands the defense fleet, Holland said. He is good. Very good. But he does not have enough firepower. Your quantum disruption cannons could change that. But I will not lie to you, Captain. This will be a trial by fire. We are asking you to fight alongside the same species you went to war against. Drake thought about his crew. About Dr. Price and his lost daughter. About Emma Walsh reading history files late into the night. About Lisa Bennett and Kyle Newman, both trying to make sense of this new world. When do we leave? Drake asked. Holland smiled. I was hoping you would say that. We leave in 6 hours. That gives you time to meet Admiral Stone and coordinate with his fleet. The next few hours were chaos. The Valiant's crew worked with Coalition engineers to update their systems. Kyle Newman argued with a Kresh technical officer about power distribution. They shouted at each other for 20 minutes before realizing they were both saying the same thing in different ways. Then they started working together, and the improvements came quickly. Lisa Bennett met with Coalition tactical officers. A Valerian named Sen showed her their current battle doctrine. It was different from what she knew, more focused on coordination between different ship types. She shared human tactics from the war, and Sen listened carefully. They found ways to combine both approaches. Lieutenant Jacob Morris commanded the Valiant's fighter wing. He watched as Coalition fighters flew practice maneuvers near his ship. They were good, he admitted reluctantly. Different from human fighters, but good. Their squadron leader, a human named Rick Hayes, contacted him. Lieutenant Morris, permission to run combined drills with your wing, Rick said over the comm. Jacob hesitated. His pilots were the best in the old fleet. But they had been asleep for 150 years. These Coalition pilots had been training their whole lives. Permission granted, Jacob said. Let us see what you can do. The drills were humbling. Coalition fighters moved with precision that impressed even Jacob's veterans. But the Valiant's pilots had experience and instincts that came from real combat. When they worked together, combining old experience with new techniques, they became something greater than either side alone. On the bridge, Drake met Admiral Stone via hologram. Stone was a Kresh, tall and covered in gray scales. His eyes were intelligent and calculating. Drake had fought against Kresh warriors in the war. They had been fierce enemies. "Captain Drake," Stone said, his voice deep and rumbling, "I have studied your tactics from the war. You are a brilliant strategist. I look forward to working with you." Drake forced himself to be professional. "Admiral, show me your defensive plan." Stone pulled up tactical displays. His plan was solid, Drake admitted. The Admiral knew his business. They discussed modifications, ways to use the Valiant's unique weapons. Stone listened to Drake's suggestions and incorporated them without ego. By the end of the briefing, Drake found himself respecting the alien Admiral despite himself. 6 hours later, the Valiant jumped to hyperspace alongside a Coalition battle fleet. They were going to war again. But this time, their old enemies fought beside them. Drake stood on his bridge and watched the fleet move through hyperspace. Hundreds of ships from dozens of species, all working together. Emma Walsh looked up from her station. "Captain, we will arrive at Crimson Gate in 4 hours." Drake nodded. "All hands, this is the captain. Battle stations. We are going to show them what the Valiant can do." They arrived to find hell waiting for them. Crimson Gate Station hung in space near a red giant star, its shields flickering under massive fire. Devourer ships surrounded it like sharks circling prey. There were hundreds of them, each one massive and dark, covered in organic armor that seemed to pulse with evil life. "All ships, this is Admiral Stone," came the voice over fleet communications. "Execute attack pattern Delta. Protect the station at all costs." The Coalition fleet spread out in a defensive formation. Drake watched on his tactical display as Stone's flagship, the Determination, took point. It was a massive ship, almost as large as the Valiant. It led 20 other capital ships into the fight. "Captain," Lisa said from tactical, "Devourer ships are breaking off to engage us. 30 contacts heading our way." Drake leaned forward. "Charge quantum disruption cannons. Target their lead ships. Emma, coordinate our fire with the fleet. Kyle, I need maximum power to shields." The crew moved with practiced efficiency. Emma's fingers flew across her console, establishing data links with Coalition ships. Kyle rerouted power from non-essential systems. Lisa locked targeting solutions on the approaching enemies. The Devourer ships opened fire. Dark energy beams lanced through space, striking the Valiant's shields. The ship shook violently. Kyle watched his readouts with alarm. The shields were dropping faster than expected. "Their weapons are extremely powerful," Kyle reported. "More powerful than anything we faced in the war. Shields at 70% and falling." Drake gripped his command chair. "Fire quantum disruption cannons." The Valiant's main weapons discharged with brilliant blue light. The quantum beams struck the lead Devourer ship directly. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire ship simply tore apart, ripped to pieces at the molecular level. Debris scattered in all directions. "Direct hit," Lisa said with satisfaction. "Target destroyed." Across the fleet communication channels, Drake heard cheers and shouts of amazement. The Coalition ships had been struggling to damage the Devourers. Now they had seen one destroyed completely in a single shot. "All ships, focus fire on targets marked by the Valiant," Admiral Stone ordered. "Captain Drake, you have command of the offensive. I will coordinate defense." Drake did not hesitate. This was what he was trained for. "Lisa, mark targets. Priority to ships threatening the station. Emma, transmit coordinates to the fleet." The battle became a desperate dance. The Valiant moved through space like a predator, its quantum cannons tearing through Devourer ships one by one. Coalition vessels followed, adding their firepower to damaged targets. Together, they were effective. Alone, they would have been destroyed. But the Devourers were not stupid. They adapted quickly. Ships began focusing their fire on the Valiant, recognizing it as the greatest threat. Drake's ship shook continuously under the assault. "Shields at 40%, Kyle called out. "Captain, we cannot take much more of this." "Admiral Stone's ship is moving to cover us," Emma reported. Drake watched as the Determination positioned itself between the Valiant and the heaviest enemy fire. Stone was protecting them, taking hits meant for Drake's ship. It was a move that could have come from any human captain Drake had served with. Determination is taking heavy damage, Lisa said with concern. Their shields are failing. Drake made his decision instantly. Full power to engines. Move us in front of the Determination. Lisa, prepare to fire all quantum cannons at once. Captain, that will drain our power reserves completely, Kyle warned. We will be defenseless. I know. Do it anyway. The Valiant surged forward, placing itself directly in the line of fire. Devourer weapons hammered against its shields. Warning alarms shrieked across the bridge. But Drake kept his focus on the tactical display. Fire, he ordered calmly. Every quantum cannon on the Valiant discharged simultaneously. The combined energy output was staggering. 6 Devourer ships simply ceased to exist, torn apart by quantum disruption. 3 more were heavily damaged and began drifting. But the cost was high. The Valiant's shields collapsed completely. Its power systems went dark. The ship drifted, helpless. All ships, protect the Valiant, Stone's voice came over emergency channels. She gave us the opening we needed. Do not let her sacrifice be in vain. Coalition ships swarmed around the Valiant, forming a protective wall. Fighters from a dozen species screened against incoming fire. And slowly, the tide turned. With the most aggressive Devourer ships destroyed, the remaining enemy began to pull back. On the Valiant's bridge, emergency lighting cast everything in red. Kyle worked frantically to restore power. Emma coordinated with rescue ships approaching their position. Lisa monitored the battle, ready to call warnings if needed. Drake sat in his command chair and watched the Coalition fleet drive off the remaining Devourers. They had won. The station was saved. Thousands of civilians would live because of what they had done here today. Captain, Emma said softly, Admiral Stone is requesting permission to come aboard once we have power restored. Drake nodded. Tell him he is welcome anytime. 2 hours later, Stone walked onto the bridge. His gray scales were scorched in places, and he moved with a slight limp. He had been injured when his ship took damage. But he stood straight and proud. He approached Drake and did something Drake never expected. The Kresh Admiral bowed deeply, a gesture of profound respect among his people. You saved my ship and my crew, Stone said. You risked everything to protect us. I will not forget this debt. Drake stood and extended his hand. Stone took it without hesitation. In that moment, 150 years of history fell away. They were not old enemies. They were brothers in arms. We protect each other, Drake said simply. That is what soldiers do. The Valiant limped back to Coalition headquarters 3 days later. Repair ships surrounded it, working to fix the damage from the battle. But despite the repairs needed, the ship had never looked more magnificent. Battle scars covered its hull like badges of honor. Drake stood at the airlock and watched as Coalition officials came aboard. Reporters from a dozen species wanted to interview him. Historians wanted to record his story. Military officers wanted to study his tactics. He felt overwhelmed by all the attention. General Holland found him hiding in the cargo bay an hour later. The general was smiling. The Coalition Council wants to give you a medal, Holland said. Actually, they want to give your entire crew medals. You are heroes across the galaxy now. Drake shook his head. We just did our job. Your job saved 12,000 civilians on that station, Holland said seriously. And you proved that the quantum disruption technology works against the Devourers. Our engineers are already studying your weapon systems. Within a year, we will have new ships with similar capabilities. Drake looked at the general. What happens to us now? To my crew. Holland pulled out a datapad. The Council is offering you a position. Admiral of the 5th Fleet. You would command a task force dedicated to fighting the Devourers. Your crew would serve with you, of course. Drake took the pad and read the details. It was a real command, not just a symbolic position. Real responsibility. Real purpose. What about my people? Drake asked. Can they choose their own paths? Of course, Holland said. Some will want to stay with you. Others may want different assignments. Dr. Price has already received offers from 3 medical schools. They want him to teach. Emma Walsh could have any communications position in the fleet. Lisa Bennett has been offered command of a new supercarrier being built. Drake felt pride for his crew. They deserved recognition. They deserved new chances at life. That evening, Drake gathered his senior officers one last time. They met in the observation deck where they had spent so many hours during the war. Through the windows, they could see coalition ships of every design moving through space. I have been offered a command, Drake told them. Admiral of the 5th Fleet. But I will not accept unless each of you chooses your own path freely. You have sacrificed enough. You deserve to live the lives you want. Dr. Price spoke first. I am going to teach. I cannot bring back my daughter, but I can train doctors who will save other people's children. That feels right to me. Emma smiled. I am staying with you, Captain. Someone needs to keep you organized. Besides, I have read enough history. I want to help make new history. Lisa looked thoughtful. They offered me a new ship, a command of my own. I am going to take it. But we will serve in the same fleet, sir. We will fight together again. Kyle grinned. I am staying with the Valiant. This old girl still has fight in her. And I am the only one who really understands her systems. You need me, Captain. One by one, the officers made their choices. Some would stay, some would go to new assignments. But they would all remain part of the coalition military. They had found new purpose in this strange future. 3 weeks later, Drake stood on Earth for the first time in 150 years. The planet had changed dramatically. Cities reached into the sky. Ships came and went from massive spaceports. Humans and aliens walked side by side through the streets. He visited the memorial for the First Contact War. Thousands of names were carved into black stone, listing all the humans who had died in the conflict. Drake ran his fingers across the names of friends and colleagues. At the bottom of one wall, he found his own name. Vincent Drake, lost in action, Battle of Proxima. They never forgot you, a voice said behind him. Drake turned to see an old woman with kind eyes. She looked familiar somehow. I am Julie Drake, she said softly. Your great-great-granddaughter. My grandmother told me stories about you. About how you saved those colony ships at Proxima. She said you were the bravest man she ever knew. Drake felt tears in his eyes. His daughter had remembered him. She had passed down his story through generations. He had not been forgotten. Thank you, he managed to say. Thank you for telling me that. Julie smiled. We are having a family gathering tonight. Would you like to come? There are about 40 of us now. We would all love to meet you. Drake nodded, unable to speak. He had lost his original family, but life had given him a new one. Descendants he had never known existed. A whole family tree that had grown while he was lost in time. 1 month later, the Valiant departed on its first mission as part of the 5th Fleet. It led a task force of 20 ships, human and alien crews working together. Admiral Drake stood on his bridge and looked at the faces around him. Emma at communications. Kyle at engineering. New officers from a dozen species filling the other stations. Admiral Stone commanded the escort carrier Courage nearby. Lisa Bennett commanded the new supercarrier Victory at the edge of the formation. They were all part of something larger now. Something that mattered. All ships reporting ready, Admiral, Emma said. Drake took a deep breath. Then let us begin. We have a galaxy to protect. The fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving Earth behind. Drake watched the stars stretch into lines of light. He thought about everything they had lost and everything they had found. They could never go home to their own time. But they had found a new home, a new purpose, a new family. The Valiant had been lost for 150 years. Now it had returned to do what it was built for. To protect humanity and all their allies from the darkness that threatened them. The crew had been given a second chance at life, and they would not waste it. Drake settled into his command chair and smiled. They were soldiers. They were protectors. They were the crew of the Valiant. and they would fight until their last breath to defend those who could not defend themselves. The future was uncertain. The Devourers would return. There would be more battles, more losses, more pain. But there would also be victories. There would be lives saved. There would be hope. And that was enough. That was everything.